In Japan's bustling streets, a multitude of individuals gather to witness a poignant scene. Lee Kyung, a young high school student, poised on the brink of a bridge, contemplating a fateful plunge into the ocean, contemplating his own demise. Lost in the depths of his contemplation, memories flood his mind, reliving the relentless torment he endured through consistent bullying at school. While Lee Kyung stood there deep in contemplation, his phone suddenly emitted a beep, capturing his attention. Opening it, he discovered a message in his class group chat, an ominous communication from his school bullies outlining their plans to assault him upon his arrival at school. Overwhelmed and visibly distressed by this disheartening revelation, Lee Kyung made the decision to relinquish the pole he was clinging to, intensifying his resolve to bring an end to his own life. Just as Lee Kyung was on the verge of releasing his grip on the pole, a passing delivery man noticed him and promptly intervened, endeavoring to dissuade him from taking his own life. With heartfelt urgency, the delivery man implored Lee Kyung to consider the impact on his family before proceeding with such a drastic act. Overwhelmed with emotions, Lee Kyung broke down in tears, expressing that his family was no longer alive. Gripped by despair, he ultimately let go of the pole and descended into the depths of the ocean, gradually losing consciousness as he drifted further into its murky embrace. Meanwhile, the scene abruptly transitions to a mysterious woman with devilish wings, soaring high in the sky. Upon witnessing the unfolding tragedy below, she callously labels it as fun, hinting at a sinister presence. The scene transitions once again, revealing Lee Kyung still alive, as he miraculously managed to be rescued in the nick of time by a diligent rescue team, much to his own disappointment. After spending a short while in the hospital, he sets off on his way back home. Treading wearily through a desolate alleyway, he suddenly hears a mysterious voice calling out, saying, "Hey, stop there." Startled, he halts and glances around, unable to spot anyone. The voice persists, urging him, "No, not there. Look up." Following the instructions, he directs his gaze upward and is taken aback to behold the enigmatic woman with devilish wings. She greets him and introduces herself as Sierra, the Grim Reaper. Upon learning her true identity, Lee Kyung's excitement gets the better of him, prompting him to inquire eagerly if she has come to claim his life. To his surprise, Sierra responds in the negative, elucidating that her purpose is to propose a pact. She offers him the opportunity to wield the power of the deceased, using a ticket known as the Underworld Ticket, albeit at the cost of his own lifespan. Showing little interest, Lee Kyung dismisses Sierra's offer outright. Undeterred, Sierra attempts to capture his attention by mentioning his presumably deceased mother, pointing out the futility of taking his own life in hopes of reuniting with her. She explains that his mother's soul resides not in the underworld, but here on Earth, and if Lee Kyung were to forge a pact with her, she could aid him in locating his mother. Despite this intriguing revelation, Lee Kyung chooses to disregard the entreaties of the Grim Reaper and continues on his way, determined to carry on without her assistance. As Lee Kyung strolls down the alleyway, he stumbles upon a distressing scene, a trio of thugs tormenting a helpless kitten. Fueled by anger, he bravely approaches them and demands an immediate cessation of their cruel actions. To bolster his case, he swiftly presents his phone, indicating that he has already reported their behavior to the police, implying that help is on its way. Regrettably, one of the thugs, named Hyo Jong, possessing considerable boxing skills, delivers a swift and forceful gut punch to Lee Kyung, causing him to clutch his stomach in pain as he crumples to his knees. Viewing this as an opportune moment to showcase his boxing prowess on a seemingly defenseless target, Hyo Jong initiates a series of punches towards Lee Kyung, swiftly followed by the participation of the other two thugs. With each blow, they mercilessly pummel and kick Lee Kyung, inflicting severe injuries upon him. Satisfied with their display of dominance, the assailants prepare to depart, leaving Lee Kyung behind, battered and bruised. In that moment, unable to escape his thoughts, he finds himself consumed by memories of his mother's tragic demise in what appeared to be a dreadful accident in the vast expanse of the ocean. Suddenly, Lee Kyung's focus is drawn to the sight of the cat approaching its lifeless mother's body. Witnessing this poignant scene, the three thugs callously make a jesting remark, causing Lee Kyung's anger to surge to new heights. It is in this pivotal moment of indignation that he makes the firm decision to proceed with the pact. Sierra, who has been observing the unfolding events, smiles with satisfaction upon hearing Lee Kyung's resolve to forge the pact. As the three thugs depart from the scene, Lee Kyung rises to his feet and assumes a boxing stance, prepared to strike. His stance captures the attention of the thugs, leading them to mockingly laugh at his resolve. Undeterred, two of the thugs initiate an attack on Lee Kyung, but to their astonishment, he fluidly evades each and every one of their strikes with ease. Taken aback by this display, Hyo Jong steps forward, confident in his left jab, claiming it to be a punch that not even the legendary Muhammad Ali could dodge. However, Lee Kyung effortlessly evades Hyo Jong's attack and retaliates with a powerful counterpunch that instantly knocks Hyo Jong out, leaving the remaining two thugs in a state of shock. With an air of menace, Lee Kyung stands before them, as the apparition of Muhammad Ali's spirit materializes behind him, urging the thugs to engage in combat. After a brief interval, we witness the thugs lying in a state of semi-consciousness, while Lee Kyung approaches Sierra. She inquires about his thoughts regarding the utilization of the underworld ticket, but he dismisses her query, instead expressing his primary concern of finding his mother. Sierra proceeds to enlighten Lee Kyung, explaining that in order to locate his mother's spirit, he must seek out an individual capable of perceiving spirits. When a user of the underworld ticket encounters such a person, they themselves acquire the ability to see spirits. This revelation sparks excitement within Lee Kyung, as he realizes the possibility of reuniting with his mother once more. Sierra proceeds with her explanation, emphasizing that harnessing the power of the deceased through the underworld ticket would only grant Lee Kyung an hour's worth of strength, and each utilization would exact a toll of 1 year from his remaining lifespan. However, she reassures him by stating that most humans live up to around 100 years, implying that sacrificing 20 years wouldn't be an excessively significant loss. Sierra urges Lee Kyung to ponder his decision carefully, prompting him to consider the duration he desires for the underworld ticket. Lee Kyung confidently declares, 1 year, in response to Sierra's inquiry. Perplexed, Sierra seeks clarification, wondering if he intends to maintain the pact for a year. However, Lee Kyung fixes her with a menacing stare and clarifies that he wishes to surrender his entire remaining lifespan, keeping only a year for himself. Sierra's excitement surges at this unexpected response, and with mutual understanding, they solidify and finalize the pact. The following day, we find Lee Kyung in his apartment, lying on his bed, his gaze fixated on a cryptic piece of paper held tightly in his hand. Lost in thought, he reflects upon his conversation with Sierra, replaying their exchange in his mind. He reminisces about the events following his triumph over the bullies. Sierra, impressed by his victory, proceeds to instruct him on how to utilize his newfound power. She demonstrates by summoning a celestial gate known as the Heaven's Gate, which contains the souls of renowned and influential individuals from throughout history. Through the enigmatic underworld ticket, Lee Kyung can summon these souls and wield their powers for a limited duration of 1 hour. Sierra then hands Lee Kyung a ticket, mentioning that it is the last one she currently possesses, promising to provide him with the remaining tickets upon her return from the underworld. Continuing their exchange, Sierra presents Lee Kyung with a silver necklace, explaining that it will emit a radiant glow when he is in proximity to his mother's spirit. With their business concluded, Sierra prepares to depart, leaping into the air. In a moment of frustration, Lee Kyung shouts after her, questioning how he will find the person who can perceive spirits. Sierra briefly turns back and cryptically responds, "Look for the gleaming amethyst, the person isn't far from you," before departing on her way. Returning to the present, we find Lee Kyung getting ready for school, his mind still pondering Sierra's enigmatic words about the person who can perceive spirits being nearby. Realizing that this individual might be a student at the same school, he sets off with a renewed sense of curiosity. Upon arriving at school, Lee Kyung is met with a chilling glare from his classmates. He walks towards his desk, only to discover it in a state of disarray, his books strewn about as a result of their mischief. As the focus shifts, we encounter a blonde student named Lee Yun-sub, who is amusing himself by playing with nunchucks, naively emulating Bruce Lee, while a friend mocks his antics. Engaging in playful banter with his friend, Lee Yun-sub catches sight of Lee Kyung and deems it a perfect chance to showcase his skills. Putting forth all his effort, Lee Yun strikes Lee Kyung in the back with his nunchucks, leaving Lee Kyung seething with frustration and anger. This fills Lee Yun with a sense of excitement and delight, causing him to mock Lee Kyung. However, their exchange takes an abrupt turn when Lee Kyung locks eyes with Lee Yun, delivering a menacing remark that he intends to confront and defeat him. The entire classroom falls into a hushed silence, with Lee Yun appearing visibly irritated by the situation. Out of frustration, he kicks Lee Kyung, further fueling the tension in the room. In that moment, Lee Kyung contemplates using the underworld ticket granted to him by Sierra, but he recalls her words about the ticket's significance. Sierra had mentioned that by possessing the underworld ticket, he would be able to see spirits when he encounters someone who possesses that ability. However, Lee Kyung possesses only one underworld ticket at the moment, and using it impulsively would not be wise. Resisting his frustration, Lee Kyung restrains himself and puts on a seemingly friendly smile, attempting to apologize to Lee Yun. This elicits laughter from everyone in the room, and Lee Yun decides to depart, warning Lee Kyung that if he repeats such behavior, he won't show him any mercy. After a while, during the break period, Lee Kyung takes it upon himself to explore the school premises in search of any potential leads to the person who can see spirits. As he wanders, his attention is drawn to a girl, and he devises a spontaneous excuse, offering a free chiromancy service, and asks if he can read her palm. Intrigued, the girl agrees, and Lee Kyung carefully examines her hand, scanning for any signs that she might be the one he is seeking. Meanwhile, the girl appears captivated by his charm. However, as Lee Kyung fails to perceive any spiritual presence, he realizes that she is not the person he is looking for. With a sense of disappointment, he releases her hand and walks away, leaving her stunned by his sudden departure. As the school day comes to an end, we observe a visibly downcast Lee Kyung making his way home, realizing that his search for the person who can see spirits has yielded no leads so far. However, despite his disappointment, Lee Kyung resolves not to give up, reminding himself that 1 year should be sufficient for his purpose. While walking home, his attention is caught by the sight of Lee Yun and his group of friends bullying a girl. Initially, Lee Kyung contemplates whether or not to intervene, but ultimately decides against it. Turning away, he resumes his journey home, determined to focus on his own path. However, his escape is abruptly halted when one of Lee Yun's friends grabs him by the neck and forcefully drags him towards Lee Yun. Filled with frustration, Lee Kyung confronts Lee Yun and his friends as they continue to mock and ridicule him. In a moment of cruelty, one of Lee Yun's friends pulls down Lee Kyung's pants, leaving him embarrassed and infuriated while the others laugh at his expense. Suppressing his anger, Lee Kyung makes a slightly agitated gesture that catches Lee Yun's attention. Reacting swiftly, Lee Yun slaps Lee Kyung and demands an explanation for his expression, unleashing a flurry of kicks upon him. Despite the relentless assault, Lee Kyung maintains a defiant glare, refusing to back down. In a desperate move, Lee Yun retrieves his nunchaku and mercilessly beats Lee Kyung, causing him significant pain. Despite the onslaught, Lee Kyung restrains himself from using the underworld ticket, keeping it as a last resort. Having exhausted his aggression on Lee Kyung, Lee Yun finds himself perplexed that his victim didn't break down in tears despite the brutal beating. Deciding to release Lee Kyung, he allows him to stumble away, seemingly done with the encounter. However, just as Lee Kyung is about to depart the scene, one of Lee Yun's friends seizes the silver necklace that Sierra had given him, yanking it from his neck, leaving Lee Kyung shocked and dismayed. Desperate to retrieve his necklace, Lee Kyung pleads with the person to return it, but instead, they cruelly offer him a concoction of spoiled milk and cigarette butts. They propose that if he drinks it all in one gulp, they will return his necklace. Faced with a difficult decision, Lee Kyung reluctantly takes up the challenge and consumes the repulsive mixture in a single shot. However, upon completing the task, Lee Kyung's hopes are crushed as the person callously smashes the necklace on the floor, shattering it into irreparable pieces with their feet. The act elicits laughter from the onlookers, leaving Lee Kyung standing there, a mix of annoyance and disappointment overwhelming him. In a sudden turn of events, the torn fragment of the underworld ticket drifts through the air, and in a swift motion, Lee Kyung delivers a powerful 1-inch punch to the person who destroyed his necklace, rendering them unconscious on the ground. The shock of this action ripples through the others, leaving them in a state of disbelief. Amidst the astonishment of the onlookers, Lee Kyung seizes Lee Yun's nunchucks, showcasing impressive and intense nunchuck maneuvers reminiscent of Bruce Lee. As he finishes his display, he fixes a menacing glare upon the group, making it clear that he holds them responsible for their actions. With a chilling tone, he warns them that he will make them pay for their deeds, expressing a desire to bring them to their end. This provokes laughter from Lee Yun and his friends as they charge at Lee Kyung in a group. However, the ensuing fight proves to be brutal for Lee Yun and his companions as they continually suffer defeats. As the fight continues, the sun gradually sets, casting an orange glow over the scene. Finally, as darkness begins to descend, Lee Kyung emerges from the fray, leaving behind the brutally injured bodies of his classmates. Lee Kyung walks over to the battered and beaten Lee Yun, gripping him by the collar. With a stern expression, he warns Lee Yun that if he ever extorts money or bullies anyone again, he will dismantle him piece by piece. Lee Yun, now humbled, promises to mend his ways and refrain from such behavior in the future. After leaving Lee Yun behind, Lee Kyung walks away, troubled by the torn underworld ticket and the challenge of finding the girl who can see spirits without any means of contacting Sierra. Lost in his thoughts, he suddenly notices the girl who had been targeted by Lee Yun and his friends earlier. Curiosity piqued, he approaches her and inquires about what she is doing. The girl picks up a ring and shows it to Lee Kyung, explaining its significance and expressing her gratitude to him. She mentions that she would like to thank him properly at a later time. As she prepares to leave, Lee Kyung's attention is drawn to the ring in her hands, triggering his memory of Sierra's words. He attempts to stop her, but it's too late as she has already entered a taxi and departed. Nevertheless, Lee Kyung stops in his tracks, a bright smile forming on his face as he believes he has finally found the person who can see spirits. The following day, we find Lee Kyung in his house, appearing to be lost in memories of the previous day's events. He recollected that after facing his school bullies and meeting the girl who he thinks can see spirits, he came across Sierra and shared the situation with her. Luckily, Sierra managed to repair the necklace that the bullies had broken and also fulfilled her promise of obtaining approximately 100 tickets for Lee Kyung. Returning to the present, we observe Lee Kyung getting ready with enthusiasm to meet the girl who possesses the ability to see spirits. While on his way, he accidentally collided with a mysterious girl with pink hair, causing her ice cream to fall to the ground. He promptly apologized and offered her some money to replace it before continuing on his journey, leaving the girl astonished by his actions. Before long, he reached a cafe where he encountered the girl who was rumored to have the ability to see spirits. He shared his predicament about his mother with her, and the girl entertained his story by presenting her purple ring, claiming that it possessed magical properties enabling her to perceive spirits. As an illustration, she impulsively grabbed a spoon and lightly tapped it against his head, declaring that she saw a spirit attached to him. Following a short conversation, Lee Kyung chooses to enter the cafe to fetch beverages for both of them. Once he has obtained the drinks, he returns to their seating area, seemingly lost in contemplation as he contemplates reaching out to the girl to confirm if she is the one he seeks. However, upon reaching their spot, he discovers it vacant. After scanning the surroundings, he catches sight of her across the street, being pursued by a man. In a split second, he sprinted off, attempting to catch up to them, and accidentally collided with the mysterious girl with pink hair whom he had bumped into before. However, this time, Lee Kyung swiftly turned around to apologize but hurriedly continued on his way. While Lee Kyung wandered the bustling streets in search of them, he soon realized that the crowd was hindering his progress. Channeling the legendary long jump athlete Silvio Carter, he utilized his parkour skills to traverse the rooftops. Eventually, he spotted the girl and skillfully descended, shifting the focus to the mysterious girl with pink hair, who was busy constructing a cat house. Unfortunately, upon Lee Kyung's descent, he accidentally crashed into the cat house, leaving the girl shocked. Startled by the sight of the pink-haired girl, Lee Kyung quickly resolved to repair the cat house. After seemingly fixing it, the girl expressed dissatisfaction, leading to an awkward silence between them. During this uncomfortable pause, Lee Kyung noticed the girl speaking to herself as if she were conversing with something, raising doubts in his mind about her sanity. Nonetheless, he chose to persist in his search for the girl he was seeking and informed the pink-haired girl that he would pay for the damaged structure. However, the pink-haired girl declined in annoyance, prompting Lee Kyung to attempt an apology, only to be questioned if that was how he had been raised. This greatly infuriated Lee Kyung, and he unleashed his anger on the girl, labeling her as crazy and a weirdo. The exchange of insults escalated between them, fueling their anger further. Eventually, Lee Kyung stormed off, leaving the girl behind. As he walked along the street, he appeared distressed by the situation. Suddenly, he was approached by the man who had been chasing the girl earlier at the cafe. The man revealed that the girl was a scammer, deceiving people with false claims of being able to see spirits. Shocked by this revelation, Lee Kyung felt a mix of anger and confusion, assuming a crouched, fetal position as he contemplated his next move. In the midst of his contemplation, the pink-haired girl passed by him. At first, he chose to ignore her presence. However, when he noticed her engaged in a conversation with an invisible entity, he approached her. To his astonishment, as he made contact with her, he suddenly gained the ability to see the spirits of countless individuals surrounding him. Interrupting his thoughts, the pink-haired girl noticed that Lee Kyung was holding her hand. She urged him to let go and inquired about his intentions. Without hesitation, Lee Kyung swiftly explained that he was aware of her ability to see spirits and that he needed her assistance. However, the girl immediately rejected his request, claiming that he had mistaken her for someone else. Despite her refusal, Lee Kyung persisted, leading her to yell at him, questioning his motives for approaching her. Their argument abruptly halted when the girl spotted a group of men dressed in black suits. Alarmed, she urgently requested that Lee Kyung provide cover for her, which he promptly did. After the men in black had passed by, the pink-haired girl started walking away, compelling Lee Kyung to trail behind her. Upon reaching a particular location, the girl set down a box containing canned tuna on the ground, prompting Lee Kyung to inquire about its purpose. In response, the girl instructed him to observe if he wished, but cautioned him not to interfere in her affairs, warning that she would make him leave forcefully if necessary. Compelled to comply, Lee Kyung silently observed the girl's actions, but as he noticed her appearing distressed, he couldn't help but wonder if the box of canned tuna was meant for a cat spirit. His inquiry led the girl to confirm that it was indeed the case, as she explained her endeavor to bring peace to the spirit. Instantly, Lee Kyung turned to Google for a few insights on things cats liked, hoping to be of assistance. Together, they attempted several methods to aid the cat spirit in finding tranquility, but unfortunately, their efforts proved futile, much to their shared frustration. Lee Kyung, driven by curiosity, gingerly plucks a strand of the pink-haired girl's hair in an attempt to witness the spirit for himself. However, his shock and fear overcome him as he beholds its monstrous visage. Concerned and determined to understand the situation, the pink-haired girl cautiously approaches the spirit, seeking to discern the cause of its distress. Suddenly, her attention is drawn to a paint can nearby, from which she retrieves a small kitten covered in paint and seemingly unconscious. The girl's expression reveals annoyance as she realizes that the kitten is likely the offspring of the enraged spirit. Pondering who could have subjected such cruelty to a defenseless creature, Lee Kyung swiftly decides to fetch a bottle of water in order to wash the cat and alleviate its discomfort. As Lee Kyung departs, the pink-haired girl becomes aware of a group of 4 thugs positioned above her. The attention then shifts to these thugs, specifically Choi Hyo-jong, also known as the boxer whom Lee Kyung had defeated along with his 2 friends. They are being reprimanded by their older sibling, who appears to be angered by the fact that they were all defeated by a single boy. As Choi Hyo-jong and his friends apologize for their actions, they are abruptly interrupted by the pink-haired girl. She interrogates them, questioning if they were the ones responsible for putting the kitten in the bucket of paint. Consequently, they all approach the pink-haired girl, and to their surprise, the older sibling cheerfully admitted that he was indeed the one responsible. Suddenly, his confession was met with a resounding slap across the face from the girl, leaving everyone in shock. Firmly, the girl urged them to offer their apologies. Annoyed by her actions, the older sibling confronted her, demanding that she repeat her words. Once again, he received another slap from her as she persisted in urging him to apologize. Enraged, he grabbed hold of her shirt and attempted to strike her. However, his violent act was swiftly interrupted by Lee Kyung, who hurled the bottle of water he had retrieved at the older sibling. Lee Kyung urged him to release the girl, intervening to protect her. In that moment, Choi and his gang recognized Lee Kyung and informed their older sibling that he was the one who had defeated them previously. Consequently, the older sibling approached Lee Kyung, seemingly prepared to engage in a physical confrontation. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Lee Kyung instinctively reached into his pocket to retrieve the underworld ticket, only to be shocked by its absence. Before he could comprehend where the ticket might be, Lee Kyung was suddenly struck with a jab to the gut, followed by a punch to the face, causing him to plummet face first to the ground. Despite his vulnerable position, he caught sight of the ticket lying just inches away from him. With sheer determination, Lee Kyung crawled towards the ticket, moving painstakingly on all fours. However, just as he was about to grasp it, the older sibling stepped on his hands, attempting to thwart his efforts. Fortunately, Lee Kyung managed to seize the ticket with his other hand, clutching it tightly even in the face of adversity. Just as Lee Kyung was about to tear the paper, the pink-haired girl, visibly weary of the situation, let out a piercing scream, "I am here." Suddenly, a group of men dressed in black suits materialized, swiftly putting an end to the thugs' advances. One of the men immediately contacted their chairman to report the unfolding events, while the others, who were revealed to be the guards of the pink-haired girl, took swift action against the thugs. Astonishingly, one of the guards grabbed the older sibling by his face, reprimanding him for his actions. Once the thugs were dealt with, the pink-haired girl directed her guards' attention to the injured cat, and they made earnest efforts to save it. However, their attempts proved futile, and they sadly declared the cat to be deceased. In this somber moment, an eerie atmosphere enveloped the surroundings. Lee Kyung, empathizing with the sorrow of losing a loved one, as he himself knew the pain of such a loss, tearfully tore the underworld ticket into pieces. He then approached the cat and, with determination, began administering CPR in a desperate attempt to revive it. Out of nowhere, the spirit of the cat's mother launched an attack on Lee Kyung, leaving the pink-haired girl stunned. However, the assault was abruptly halted by the intervention of none other than James Herriot, a renowned veterinary doctor in the spirit realm. With the guidance and knowledge of James Herriot, Lee Kyung skillfully applied his techniques and successfully revived the little kitten. In a heartwarming moment, the kitten and the spirit of its deceased mother shared a brief reunion, embracing each other's presence. As the spirit of the mother expressed her gratitude to Lee Kyung, she conveyed that she had finally found peace. With her message delivered, the spirit gradually dissipated, leaving behind a sense of tranquility.